Hello and welcome to another knitting pod. I am Lena and I am so happy to be spending some time with you, catching up about yarn and knitting. I have so much fun stuff to share with you guys today. So if you are new here, welcome. I hope that you'll hang out and chit chat about all this good stuff. If you are returning, thank you for coming back. Spending time with you is the highlight of my week. Real quick, two things. I have so many works in progress right now. I find it slightly overwhelming. And normally I talk about kind of everything I'm working on every week, but today I have so much content that's not about my works in progress that I'm just going to talk about that today. So basically, if you've been here for a while, you know I went to Portland last weekend and it was technically to watch my son play basketball in a tournament he was playing in, but really the undercover, not so undercover reason was yarn tourism. Okay. So that is why I went and it was amazing and I have so much to share with you. So that is what this podcast is going to be about because I have so much to share. And unless we want a 2-hour podcast, we're going to have to take a week off from works in progress. The other little thing I wanted to tell you real quick because normally I don't talk about stuff like this till the end, but I did want to tell you that I finally figured out how to turn off commercials, I believe, for my channel. I am not a technologically interested person. I was about to say gifted, but I don't think the problem is that I don't know how to use it. I just can't stand it. So I've always just been a technological minimalist. I do the minimum and forget about the rest. But I had gotten a comment from Madeline, a viewer, a subscriber, saying that there was just so many commercials and it just really broke my heart because I haven't been paying attention to that at all. Any of the, ways you experience my podcast on YouTube. So I think I figured it out. I hope I figured it out. Please do let me know. I'm sure you will. If there are a ton of commercials or if there are none or somewhere in between, I don't know. I'm sure we'll see. But I hope it makes your experience watching and spending time with me more enjoyable. Okay. Now that that is over, let's jump right in. So, Portland, why did I have this yarny dream for Portland? Well, Portland has a ton of yarn shops. And we here in Boulder, Colorado, also have quite a few yarn shops in our local area. And since I moved here, I feel so grateful and I find so much joy in those yarn shops. And I was just really excited to visit another city and kind of get a sense of their fiber vibes. And, every yarn shop has its unique personality, and I just was really excited about it. So it did not disappoint. If anything, it exceeded my expectations. So let's start. So we went to 3. I'm just going to go chronologically. First, we went to Starlight Knitting Society. Honestly, we had a very early flight and landed really early, and we literally went from the airport to Starlight because we weren't sure what the basketball game schedule was going to look like for the rest of our time there. And I just was so scared that my time would get eaten up with other stuff and then I wouldn't get to do those things. So we decided to do some of the yarny stuff first, and I'm so glad we did. So we rented our car and we drove straight to Starlight in the pouring rain. And what a delightful shop, you guys. It was so beautiful and cozy. And if I lived in Portland, that is the shop I would hang out in. It is very spacious. They have this adorable seating area with a couch and chairs and a gorgeous fireplace. And they have, shawls all over the chairs. It's a knitter's dream. Okay. And in a rainy, cozy city like Portland, to have that kind of space it was amazing. And the people that worked there were just so lovely and welcoming and exactly reflective of the vibe. Like, it was very consistent to me across the board in terms of the people that work there and the feeling in the store. And I'm one of those people that I am so overwhelmed by sparkly enthusiasm when I'm in a yarn store. And if the people that work there can meet me in that energy and chit chat about stuff, then I'm going to be so much happier. And I really felt like all of that, was exactly on point. So 10 out of 10 for vibes. As far as yarn, of course, the star for me of that shop was a wall full of Spin Cycle. It was really, really quite something. And I have to say, for as many yarn shops as we have in the Boulder area, not one of them carries Spin Cycle, which is a huge bummer. I am not talking about Denver. In Denver, there's fancy Tiger Crafts, and the last time I went there, they did have some Spin Cycle, not nearly as much as Starlight. Starlight had a wall, and it was like the top half was dyed in the wool, so there's sport weight, and then the bottom half was dream state. They even had some of the plump base, the bulkier weight, and then they had tons of samples, which I thought was super cool because I don't know about you, I've said this before on this channel, every step closer to reality, I feel like reflects yarn and knit garments and pieces differently. So you get the least amount of information from a picture, and you get the most amount of information from real life samples, not just balls of yarn, but samples. And this trip gave me a new appreciation of the samples in yarn stores. I have to say that that's just not been something that in my local yarn shops have been very impressive in that regard. These couple of shops just took it to the next level. So as someone who loves Spin Cycle, it was so amazing to see so many samples knit up with Spin Cycle. For instance, they had several, what are those called? The Andrea Mowry shift cowls, shift shawls. They had a few pressed flowers cardigans. Maybe it was a pressed flowers shawl. Like, they just had a lot of pieces so you could see and get inspired and see what Spin Cycle was looking like as those colors were interplaying in the pieces. So as I told you last week, I was leaning towards getting some fiber for a pressed flowers cardigan or pullover of my own. But when I saw that amazing wall and all the colors in real life, not on a computer screen, I was really keen on a project that would allow me to work with several different colors of Spin Cycle rather than a pressed flowers with just one colorway. So what I just knit recently that made me fall in love with Spin Cycle was the Traveler shawl, and I knit it all in Ghost Ranch. And I really like, because in Ghost Ranch and some of the more variegated skeins, there's so much variation in color within that colorway. Adding several colorways to me was just going to be too much. I thought it would be just like too many different shades and colors, and already it's a lot. So I didn't want to do a pressed flowers with multiple colors. So I decided, this has been in my queue. Actually, I even purchased this, I think when Caitlin Hunter had a sale at some point, the Easy V pullover or sweater. I can't remember the exact name, but the Easy V by Caitlin Hunter. I've always loved this. And there are several reasons why, even before my obsession with Spin Cycle. I have found that it is very hard to find beautiful colorwork sweaters that aren't a crew neck or a round circle neck like this. I have told you before, I really like a more open neckline, forgetting that I'm wearing this right now, but I tend to like at least some sort of V or even a crew neck or something more open because I have very broad shoulders and I feel like I look much broader when I have everything closed off like this. And if I have something that kind of opens up some skin right here, I feel less linebackery. And I love that this sweater has this very unique neckline. So it's a very shallow V, but it's wide. And I just think it's a really pretty feminine, understated shape that I've never seen in another sweater. And I just really, really like it. I love that it's in worsted weight because I just think for me personally, color work in a worsted weight works better. I think sometimes my tension gets a little too loose with fingering weight color work. Anyway, and then to top it off, you get to use 3 shades of Spin Cycle. And I'm gonna put the picture up that really pushed me over the edge. It is Kristen Lara Vine Yarns, her Easy V. I just love this so much. It is perfection. I just think she is so good at putting colors together, and this is just an example of that. I know that dusty color of the body of her sweater is a Knitting for Olive in their heavy merino. I cannot remember what the colorway is called right now, but I just think it's perfect. So I didn't bring it, it's in my closet, but I had purchased some undyed, beautiful small farm fiber from Rhinebeck a couple of years ago when I went. And it's an undyed, like I said, so it's kind of creamy. And I thought it would be perfect for this sweater. I still wish, like if I had in my stash something more similar to the one she used, that's like something that's a bit moodier, I guess is what I'm saying. Not necessarily that mauve color, but sorry, my nose is itching. Even something like grayish-ish. But anyway, I have this undyed color that I was going to use. And then my daughter and I literally spent 45 minutes trying to figure out 3 Spin Cycle colors that I thought would be perfect. And I still don't think I made the right choice. So let me just show you some freaking yarn. It's been like 15 minutes and I haven't showed you anything. So it was incredibly difficult, except the thing is when I say difficult, it was more like a joyful kind of difficult, like the best kind of difficult, because it just let us play with colors, and you know how much I love color and the color interaction and stuff. So let me show you the one that I know was the right choice. It is this, oh, it's just so fun. I wish you could see it in person just because, again, video's better than a picture, but IRL is better than a video. This is the colorway Salty Dog. And I know it's been very popular with a lot of knitters. And I think because it's a more understated tonal that I was like, meh. But in person, it is amazing, okay? Amazing. I love it so much. It's got mustards and burnt oranges and ochre and just all these gorgeous, earthy, golden yellows. It's just so beautiful, okay? So this was the right choice for sure. Now we get into the other 2 that I'm not sure. And the thing was, I thought they were the right choice. And then it wasn't until much later that I realized why I think they're not the right choice. So if you've been watching me, you know that Truth Bomb was one of the ones that I've been coveting. And so I decided to go with it. It's just so much fun because it's got a lot of deep colors like browns and deep teals and golden, yellow, etc. But it's got these pops of neon green and turquoise, and it's just such a cool combination. And the thing I loved about the traveler shawl when I made it with Ghost Ranch was each skein would just unfold in the most unexpected, beautiful way. And it was just like being on a journey every time I picked that project up. And I loved it so much. And I thought there's a lot of yellow in there. So I thought that tied these two together really well. And then after much consternation and deliberation, we ended up picking Ghost Ranch because it is my all-time favorite spin cycle colorway. And I just felt like if you love something that much, even though I have a shawl with just Ghost Ranch, this would be a completely different thing. And again, what I liked was what we both kind of had in our minds was that there is a lot of yellow in each of these. And to me, that was what was kind of tying them together. Let me try to hold it like this for you to show. Now, this is where I think I went wrong. This salty dog colorway is extremely tonal. Like I said, it's all variations of yellow and gold. These two are not tonal in any way, shape, or form. They have every color of the rainbow. Like I can see just off the top of my head with Truth Bomb, I see maroon, orange, burnt orange, yellow, like a primary yellow, gold, green, neon green, turquoise, everything. And then you've got Ghost Ranch, which has red, salmon, yellow, blue, gray, teal, like everything. So to me, this easy V, the realization came way too late that perhaps would have been more beautiful if I had picked 3 tonal colors. So I don't know, like there's a couple, and I don't think they had them there. What's it called? I can't remember, but they have kind of a grayish blue tonal that would have been really cool. But anyway, any form of more similar to this rather than super multicolored like this. So I don't know. To be quite honest, I wouldn't know until I swatched or started the sweater because it's just impossible to know how those colors will interplay. Womp womp. But here's the deal. There is no planet in which this would not just be used and loved by me. So it's not like I accidentally picked the wrong colorway and I don't want to knit with them. It's just they're kind of like one-off skeins, which I've sworn off for my whole life because it's so hard to figure out. They're so fun to purchase, but it's so hard to figure out what to do with them. However, like just, to take Andrea Mowry, for example, she has the Inclinations shawl, which is, I think she uses 6 different colors of Spin Cycle Dream State, or the shift cowl or the night shift shawl. There would be so many ways for me to use those if I really don't want to use them for this sweater. So again, you can try to prepare and think these things out to the max like I do, just because I love thinking about yarn, and then still feel like you made a misstep. So I'd be curious what you'd think. I'd be curious to know if you've made that sweater and what yarn you used. Yeah, I don't know. And if I decide to not go with these and go in a different direction, I might end up waiting and investing in a colorway for the body that I just really, really love, because I just love the dusty mauve color that she used, and it just has such a cool vibe. Like, honestly, I would totally recreate the one that she did, the Kristen Lara one. She's just a genius with color. Anyway, let me know what you think about that. And also, while we're on the topic of leaving comments, I will deeply apologize for not responding to all your comments from last week because I was gone and it was so hectic and it's been so busy because I've been single parenting again and I just have not had time to respond. But please know that I read and love to read and think about each and every one of your comments. So I will definitely respond this week. So yeah, I think that's all I got from Starlight. I did get an enamel pin that was beautiful, but it is not within arm's reach right now. I'm so glad I remembered to ask them to wind my skeins of yarn because, as we spoke about last week, I'm having ball winder rage and just generally it's so much easier for them to do it for you. So I was really happy that I remembered because I almost didn't. And they are not usually going to offer because it's a pain for them, but better a pain for them than a pain for me. Okay, so then we had lunch, this like a little adorable sandwich shop. Excuse me. So much talking. I don't remember if we went to our next shop straight away or I think we might have checked into our hotel and then gone. So next we went to Ritual Dyes. And oh my gosh, you guys, I'm going to try to be like eloquent about this because I could just like vomit a bunch of love for Ritual Dyes, but I'm going to try to be more precise in the way I talk about it because I could just get too effusive because I loved it so much. I really, really loved it. So if Starlight was like being in your best knitting friend's cozy, amazing living room, Ritual Dyes has more of a like museum vibe. So when I walked in, it's much smaller because of I think the area in Portland, probably the real estate is just a little bit different. It has just like a very clean vibe, lots of plants. It was just such a neat space and not big. And then kind of more urban, like they had this big table in the middle of the room that was a high, like bar level, very, I don't know how to explain it, but much more modern. And then the girls that worked there had a much more like museum curator vibe. Like you would walk in and they'd all just kind of look at you. And then I kind of felt really self-conscious because I don't know, I can just be silly and talk a lot. And they were all just seemed so, cool glasses and very artsy looking with tattoos. And I don't know, just too cool for me. But they ended up being very lovely and nice and had so much, knowledge and just fit that space really well. Again, similar to Starlight, this place had a really well thought out point of view and they were just super spot on their vision and making it consistent across your experience there. But by far, it was deceptively simple. And when you spent a few minutes walking around, just the yarn selection there was so incredibly curated and beautiful and just so spot on with my personal aesthetic. I just see what I mean? I could go on and just gush. It was just magical. Like, there were two things that I think set that place apart. Number one, not surprisingly, the yarn they carried. Number one, they had their own Ritual Dyes brand that they dye. And you guys, oh my God, their yarn was not even on my radar. Like, again, it's really hard to have anything on your radar if you haven't seen it in person because there's just so much yarn out there. It's so hard to, distinguish between smaller brands, like which one is going to be worth trying out and which one isn't. Usually, I think how this stuff gets in our brains is a designer we love will use that yarn and we love that colorway, so we order it if it's not local to us, and that's how we might experience it. But it's just so different to go and see the yarn's entire line in person. It was worth the flight to Portland alone just for that. Because now, anytime I'm not sure what brand to turn to for a yarn, I think Ritual Dyes might truly be one of my defaults for this reason. I love non-superwash yarn, however, because I just like it all the way across, because when we buy expensive yarn, I want it to feel close to the sheep. Like, I don't want it to be expensive and then feel almost like acrylic yarn. And sometimes superwash yarn has that feeling. It just feels completely devoid of its natural characteristics as yarn. So I love non-superwash yarn. However, the limitations of non-superwash yarn are sometimes it's a little too rustic, which is code for itchy, scratchy, and not that soft. And sometimes the color range can be very limited because when you have a superwash yarn, you're just stripping away the scales and stuff and then that yarn will take whatever color you give it. It's just an art to dye non-superwash yarn really beautifully and in vivid colors. Oh my gosh, their yarn was non-superwash. I believe all of it was non-superwash, and it was just stunning. I wish I could have bought a skein of everything they had. Like their mohair specifically, they had the most rich, gorgeous shades of mohair. They had mohair, fingering weight, DK. I think they had a sport and a worsted. They might have even had a bulky, I'm not sure. It just was an embarrassment of riches. If you love richly colored yarn that also has a gorgeous texture that's not too woolly, it just was amazing. So I'm now going to show you what I bought there. I wasn't sure what I was going to make with it, but I was just 100% sure on the color, and that is this. This is the colorway Jewelweed. It is their fingering weight. I forgot what it's called. Let me look, okay. Sometimes they stick the little tag in so securely that's pretty hard to get out. Okay, hold on one second. Got it. All right, okay, it is Maven. That is their 2-ply fingering weight. It is U.S. grown and milled Rambouillet. I never know how to say that. That is the colorway, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. Now, I don't know if this is reading accurately on the screen. It's just impossible to tell, but it is a very orange-based red. It leans very tomato rather than more like blue. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have any berry tone. It's just so orange. It is just so unique, and I am not at all in any way, shape, or form someone who leans towards red. It's just a color it's probably towards the bottom of my color list. I don't think it's just I don't like red. But this color, it just blew my mind. So at first I did not know what to make with it. So I was just gonna buy one skein and then I thought I'll make a hat. But that just felt like not very inspiring to me, myself. So then I thought, okay, I'll get two skeins and then I'll make a tank top. Jessie May of Jessie May Designs has used this colorway in, that's why I recognize the name. Her gingham, the Great Gingham, her original sample this was one of the colors. And I thought it was beautiful in that that was just not a piece I wanted to make for myself. But when I saw this, I just knew I needed to have a top in this color solid, not like color work or anything like that. So I bought two skeins of it and then we left after some time. We just soaked it all in forever. And then we left and I had these two skeins. And then when we got back to the hotel, I was just scouring Ravelry for inspiration. And I had this sudden thunderbolt realization of what I wanted to do with this, and that is make a ranunculus. If you watched my episode when I talked about everything I made last year, when I showed you the ranunculus by Midori Hirose that I made last year, I said I really wanted to make another one because I loved the process and the finished object so much. It was a joy to knit, and it's one of my absolute favorite sweaters to wear because it just makes me feel like the best version of me. It's feminine, but it's boxy and oversized, and I really wanted to make it. That one I made cropped, and I really wanted to make one that was just normal length with normal long sleeves. And what I have realized for myself with the ranunculus is I like it best in a lighter weight yarn. So I don't want to make it in like a worsted or anything like that. I just want to make it in fingering weight. And I just realized like this would be the perfect yarn for ranunculus. So then I realized I needed another skein. And so I think the next day or the last day we went back, and the girl laughed because she was like, oh, you figured out what you wanted to make. And I bought an extra skein of this. Sadly, they were out of the mohair in this, which is probably for the best because I'm not sure I could have resisted getting the mohair because I love hats in fingering held double with mohair. It just gives your head this glorious halo that makes you just look like in a bright color. It's just like this crown of brightness, and I think that would be so pretty. So if I see it restocked online, I might get it. But this was the most exciting purchase for me this trip because I knew I was going to get Spin Cycle, so I was really prepared for that. But this was just like that. I'd given myself permission to just give into one just joyous, sparkly yarn whim. And this was that joyous, sparkly yarn whim for me this trip. And I love it because it's so unexpected. It wasn't fuchsia for me, or it wasn't neon yellow, which is another color I love. This is just not a color I would ever have run into anywhere other than that shop. And I will make this sweater and I will forever remember that trip, which is what makes buying yarn when you travel really special. It's just, I don't know, it just draws those memories into something that you can remember every time you put that garment on. It's the same for going to like Rhinebeck or any festival. It's just special, and it's extra special to knit with yarn you get from those because the memories are so good. What else? I have my notes because, oh my gosh, I can't believe, I'm so glad I have notes because if I had forgotten to talk about this, I would be super pissed at myself because this was what the other number two thing, so the first thing that made Rituals Dyes so special was the yarn they carried. Oh, I have to say one more yarn other than their own house dyed brand. They carry a French brand called Durarum Natura, and I'm sure you have heard of this brand because I feel like a lot of designers, especially the European ones, have used this in their designs, and I had never seen it anywhere. Another brand that I just fell head over heels in love with. Again, very close to the sheep in terms of the way they go about making the yarn, dyeing the yarn. It's non-superwash. The color palette is very earthy but rich. I just fell in love with this brand. And again, it will be on my list for when I want to make something and I need to purchase a sweater skein or a shawl skein, sweaters quantity or shawls quantity. This will be Ritual Dyes and Durarum Natura will be at the top of my list. Again, it's a French brand started by a woman who wanted to make a yarn brand that was really conscious of how the sheep are treated, how the climate impact in terms of what is the runoff of the water is, all that is so a part of their vision and a part of how they create every single type of yarn they create. And is their labor well paid? If you go to their website, and I highly encourage you to, you'll feel so inspired because it's just everything I want in a yarn brand. So I was just thrilled to get to touch it and look at the colors in person, and most importantly, see it knit up in person, like in their samples. And that brings me to the other thing that set this shop apart from any other shop I've been to. The samples in there were mind-blowing. I was telling my friend Jessica about this because we were debriefing in person, and I'm sorry if you're watching this, I'm sorry you have to hear all this twice, but it's so hard to discover new designers sometimes because we just get the same 5 or 6 designers over and over. And like the way Instagram works, it just keeps feeding you the same stuff. And then if you like Spin Cycle, then Spin Cycle collaborates with the same designers a lot. And if you like Stephen West, he's always putting things out. And I love all those designers. I love Stephen West and Andrew Mowry and Caitlin Hunter and all the Hohi and all the ones that we can name off the top of our heads. But sometimes I want to support up and coming or lesser known designers. Just like I appreciate when you guys give my podcast a try, even though there's other huge podcasters with much bigger followings. It's the same with designers. It's just really hard to find them. And they had some samples in there made by designers I had never heard of, that I would never have found on my own, that just blew my mind and made me so grateful for how much creativity there is out there and how much energy it takes for them to design, to knit up samples, to test knit, to put it out there, to write up the patterns properly. It is incredible. It's an incredible amount of work. And I was just really excited to get some new designers in my mind so that I can share them with you, and maybe you'll be as mind blown as I was. The first one is, the designer's name is Keiko Kikuno, which is the coolest name ever. I, as you know, am a big fan of the letter K also. And the sweater is called Akemi. I loved this sweater so much, okay? First of all, the sample was knit up in Ritual Dyes I believe they're DK weight in a colorway called Lamb's Ear. Oh, again, not a color I would default to, but it was the most beautiful. I'm putting a picture here. The most beautiful, like mint Easter egg green, spring in a color, just apt, almost like very light Tiffany blue. I don't know. I'm showing you so you can see the exact piece that was in the shop. And fringe is my love language, y'all. I love fringe. I don't know why. It's probably the same part of me that likes sparkly nail polish, but it's just, there's something about dangly fiber moving is just, it makes me so happy. I freaking love fringe. And the way this fringe is, it's so unique. I've never seen a piece like it. I was gobsmacked. If I was not already, like, if I hadn't already bought the spin cycle, I would have possibly bought enough yarn to make this because they ship for free if you buy it in the store. But I figured I've got so much on my needles right now, so many big projects and so many things queued up that it's just definitely something I want to knit this year. When this year, I have no idea, but I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't share it because it was so stinking beautiful. Now, one thing I will say about this sweater, I think it looks the best oversized. I think when I was going through the projects, if it was fitted, it looked a little, I don't know. To me personally, wasn't a big fan of the fitted ones, but this particular person, I'm going to put up a picture real quick, had such a gorgeous version. It was super oversized and it just has this, it's just a showstopper. I don't think there's if you just made it in your favorite color, you just cannot go wrong. I love texture in my knits and this just is like texture exploded. So pick your favorite color and just, I think it would be such a fun piece to knit. I just love it so much. So this was hands down my favorite sample I saw on this trip. Another one that I absolutely loved and would not have even noticed if we hadn't had to go back for that third skein was the 3-corner shawl by Mackenzie Alvarez. And this was draped over one of their chairs that I didn't look at when I went there because the chair was cream and this shawl was cream, their sample. Oh my gosh, you guys. Now talk about original. Like, this is why I love looking for new designers because it's such a unique point of view and it's breathtaking. It is breathtaking. I'm showing you the pictures so that you can, try to see how impactful it is from a picture. Although I think, again, it just was so much more beautiful in person. But basically, long story short, it's not a complicated piece. It's a triangular shawl made in a worsted weight with a gorgeous cabled border that didn't look too complicated at all, like a very kind of braided vibe. And then what made this piece so unique is it had a mohair silk layer. It looked like you pick up stitches along the top edge and it just is this layer on top of the center that is smaller. So the worsted weight cabled border will always be visible, but then that mohair layer would be open and have movement and lightness and give it dimension and texture. And it was just so simple and elegant and beautiful. I mean, breathtakingly beautiful. I was so thrilled to find this designer. She is from the Pacific Northwest, lives there, designs from her inspiration there. And if you go to her Ravelry and look at her various pieces, you will just be swept away in the beauty of her pieces. I was thrilled to find her and cannot wait. You know, I am the shawl queen and love shawls. Like, there's just no end to how many shawls I will knit because they're like a glamorous security blanket for me. And this is probably number one on my to knit shawls list. And when I was thinking about it this morning, when I was walking one of my dogs, I was thinking like, you'd have to knit the whole thing and that mohair layer, but I would totally be up for that because it just was a showstopper. And doing it in that cream that was so like, oh, and what would be so pretty is if you did the bottom in one color and then the top in a different color so that it would be like, the colors would be melding, but in a very unique way. Oh my gosh. You're welcome. Go forth and explore Mackenzie Alvarez's Ravelry library, and you will be so inspired. And, you know, to take the Pacific Northwest as inspiration, I cannot tell you how much I loved Portland. It was the coolest city. Like, I live in Colorado, and it's just, we are so lucky. It is the most beautiful state. There is so much natural beauty. However, I live in Boulder, which is a very small town, and then Denver is much bigger. But there's nothing about Denver that is architecturally inspiring to me. It is a city like any other city. Portland, on the other hand, is so gorgeous, not only naturally, but in terms of the architecture and just the landscape. It's so cool. The number of bridges they have, which are so cool, not only to drive across, but to look. Like, if you're on one of the bridges and you look to the side, you'll see other bridges, and they're all so unique. It's just the coolest city. I am dying to go back in a different season that's not as cold and rainy because it would just open up so much more hiking and exploring. So I'm definitely want to go back with my whole family. It was just magical. And so I get why that area would be so inspirational to a designer, because so rarely do you have natural beauty and city beauty together and intermingling. And so I could see that in her designs, more natural elements and more structural elements. It's just so cool. I loved Portland. If you are in the United States, I think sometimes it's just easy to think you have to go really far or like overseas to see really, really cool cities. But we have some really neat things here also. And I was thrilled to discover that Portland is just a gem, a gem. I wouldn't call it a hidden gem, but it was just not really on my radar. And sometimes I think it gets a lot of bad press for homelessness. And I'm so glad I didn't listen to any of the super negative stuff I hear, because it would have been I would have been missing out on a really neat city. And, you know, like, the hipster knitting vibe is strong, and I am totally here for it. I could totally live in Portland, except for the fact that I would suffer mentally from the gloom and doom. And it definitely was gloomy and doomy. So anyway, I think that ends my ranting and raving with absolute positivity about Ritual Dyes. It was such a joy to go there. I hope to go there again soon. I hope to encounter them at other yarn festivals. I know when I went to Rhinebeck, they were there. I bought a really, really cool knitter's backpack from them there. And now that I appreciate their full endeavor, I'm so glad I bought that piece and supported them, because it was not inexpensive. But I love it, and I love what they're doing there. I saw the owner for like 2 seconds, but I'm like, I should have talked to her more, but then I became very self-conscious and I didn't really talk to her very much. But it was a joy. She's doing a great job. Now, what did I also got Jessica as a gift the Durarum Natura mohair. I already gave it to her, so I can't show it to you. But it was so beautiful. It was such a fluffy, cloud-like ball of mohair. Their colors were gorgeous, and they had this cowl knit up as a sample in that, and it was so stunning. I've never seen a fully just lace weight lace cowl, and it was absolutely stunning. I'm gonna put up a picture and the name. It was some French name that I will not even dare try to pronounce for fear of embarrassing myself. But again, another sample that was just so inspiring and so beautiful and a great, I'm always looking for smaller projects that are unique and impactful and fun to knit up. And I think this would fit that bill all the way across. So I got her that in hopes that she might enjoy that cowl. Okay, so that is all the yarn store stuff. What did I end up knitting while I was there? I had told you guys that I was going to knit, what was it called? I think it was called the Queen Bee Hat by Sari Nordland, but I did not end up knitting that. I started it in the yarn I told you I was going to start it in. So it was the leftovers from the sweater I knit my husband, which was like a deep sprucey green, like pine evergreen color. And I was going to hold it double with a strand of dark mustard mohair. Again, you never know until you do it what something is going to knit up like, and I just did not like the way it was knitting up. I would say I knit like this much of the ribbing, and it just looked very muddy. It didn't look pretty. It looked muddy. And I didn't think it was going to be super fun to do cables in it. It just wasn't fun to knit or looking pretty, and that's a really bad combination. So I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I ripped it out. And normally I'm really scared to knit out mohair, but I was really, really careful because I wanted to salvage all of that. Mohair is very sticky, and when you are trying to rip it out, a lot of times it just becomes a tangled mess. Live and learn on that front. So I was very careful and salvaged all the yarn. So I was very happy on that front. And it was a free pattern, so I didn't feel guilty that I didn't knit a pattern that I purchased. I ended up knitting I think it's called the Poofy Puff Light by Jessie May. I also finished it. Is it not the cutest thing you've ever seen? And I am so thrilled that I decided to knit this for a few reasons. First of all, given the gloom and doom of Portland, I'm glad I wasn't knitting something in a muddy looking color. Color affects me very deeply, and these colors are just my vibe, y'all. This is Mermaid Parade by Wandering Flock. It is the leftovers from the Fade and Lace Boxy that I made last year. It is a sport weight yarn, and I held it double with the merino. Why do I keep saying that? The mohair. In the Fade and Lace, I knit it. It's knit in panels, so it's like the sport weight, then a panel of the mohair, and then a panel of the sport weight. So it was really fun to knit it held together because I hadn't knit it like that yet. I have realized I really love a lighter weight yarn held with mohair rather than a worsted weight held with mohair. I think the ratio makes it look fluffier. And when you use a worsted and mohair, the worsted is so heavy that the mohair just doesn't shine as much. And like I said, a mohair hat is it's the only way to go, really. Because you're not finding this hat at Nordstrom, right? So it's such a showstopper. And this color, I just love it. Look at how pretty. I would have worn it for you, but curly hair for me with a hat it doesn't look good. So I didn't want to straighten my hair today because I didn't have time. And I'm trying to lean into the curly hair because straightening takes time. I'm trying to lean into what I actually look like. Like, this is what this is my hair. And as I've worked towards it, I've found ways to like my hair curly more. So thank you for embracing my hair journey here on this channel. At the beginning, I wouldn't have dared to try to wear my hair natural, but I've kind of been experimenting with different ways to make my curl something that I like rather than something I'm trying to fight. Do you know what I mean? And if you have curly hair, you know what I'm talking about. It's just its own beast. It's not like straight hair, and it kind of wants to do what it wants to do. But I'm working on it, y'all. I'm working on it. But that means I could not wear this hat for you. So the next time I wear my hair straight, I will wear this hat on the pod. I really love this hat. It is a bottom up 1x1 rib. It was such a great travel project because it was 1x1 rib. That's it. Just round and round she goes. And then you start these central double decreases, which I think turn out pretty cute. One of the notes she had in her pattern was that some people thought the crown decreases resulted in a hat that was too pointy. And I was really worried about that because I don't need to look like a garden gnome like that. I am too old for the like cool kid pointy hat vibe. No, I would not feel confident in that. So what I did was, so what she says, if you don't want a pointier crown decrease, rather than doing the decreases every other row, you do them every row. So I started out, because I didn't know what to do, I did half of them every other row, and then I switched to finishing them every row. And I actually like the way that turned out. The only complaint I have is I wish I had made it slightly longer. And I think maybe it would have been slightly longer if I had done those every other row decreases. I have another hat that I made last year, very similar to this one, called the Robin Beanie. I wish I had brought it over here. I took it to Portland because it's my favorite hat I've ever knit. I wear it all the time because it's neon pink, it's mohair, it's comfortable, it's cute, it covers up a multitude of hair scents. So it's just cute, disguising anything you don't, dirty hair, grays, whatever, a pimple on your forehead. It's just a win-win. So that is, I believe, like a 3x3 rib. So, and it's a top-down hat. So this was bottom up 1x1. That's top down 3x3, I think. And I have to say, you know, that sounds like if you held them up together, you'd be like, what's the difference? To me, I still think the Robin beanie wins out. One of the things I love about the top down beanie is that you can really make it long enough and know what it's going to look like when you cast off. Whereas when you're doing the decreases at the end, Danny's snoring really loudly. I apologize. Sometimes you're like, I thought my husband was snoring, but it was my dog. Sorry. Anyway, I just like the top down, even though the cast on is a little bit more fussy. You get all the increases out of the way, and then it's just kind of a fast finish to the end. It took a great travel project, but I can't complain. Even though this is slightly shorter than I would like, I really like it. One of the problems that you guys know, I'm a loose knitter, and I've run across this problem so much, is I cannot seem to get sizing with hats and socks right. It's either too tight or too loose. So this I felt like was slightly too loose. And so what I did yesterday, I was picking up something at the Walmart next to me, and I found some elastic cord that you use for bracelets because they didn't have just like a spool of it for sewing. And I literally just slipped it through. You can even maybe kind of see it, and pulled it tight, which and I can take it out at any time. I would just clip it and pull it, but it makes it slightly snugger to my head, so it just feels more comfortable for me. And it didn't alter the look or anything. It just feels a little more secure and tight, which is the feeling I like. So I've been meaning to try that as a hack, but I haven't been able to find the elastic thread I have that I know I have in this house somewhere. So Danny, she's like, why'd you wake me up? Anyway, we're almost done here. Oh my gosh, it's been an hour. Okay, so you can see the elastic cord. I need to cut it. But this is my Poofy Puff Light hat by Jessie May, and I love it. It's so cute. It was such a great travel project, and this yarn is fabulous. Oh my God, you guys, fabulous. I finished that hat and was happy that I had brought sock yarn and some needles to cast on. So I cast on the Free Scrappy DK sock by Stephen West. And I decided, because if you've been following my sock saga, I've only made one pair of socks and it was way too loose. And I measured it the way he said to measure it, which was the circumference of my foot, not my leg, but my foot minus 2 inches or whatever. And that was still too big. So I decided, because I have a really narrow foot, to do the smallest size in that pattern. And it turned out to be extraordinarily tiny. And I showed it to Jessica and she cracked up. She was like, basically trying to be the sweet person she is. She was trying to say, like, there's no way in hell that sock's gonna fit your foot. And sure enough, it's definitely not. But I have to say, I'm kind of relieved because I have so many works in progress right now. I really didn't need a sock to knit. I just have too much going on. So once this hat was done and then I'm going to scrap this, I was actually a little relieved because now that takes 2 out. There's this sweet spot with works in progress. Like, I don't like to have, I am not a monogamous knitter, but also like 6 big projects is too much for me. So right now I have 2 shawls that I'm in the middle of, 2 cardigans that I'm in the middle of, and that collar, the cabled collar, that's almost done. So that is the upper limit for me. So I am not mad at having to rip this out. It kept me company. It was fun. This color is gorgeous. This is hedgehog fiber. I think this is the colorway Park Life. I love this colorway. It's similar to this, actually, to Mermaid Parade, but Mermaid Parade's a lot lighter, but they both have the same kind of speckles. This has neon yellow, pink, and dark blue. This doesn't have the dark blue, but those neon yellow against that green backdrop are really, really pretty. But this will be ripped out. I just have this double already wound up. So it was fun. I enjoyed this, but like I said, I don't need it. Okay. That's an hour, and I haven't even talked about the book that I wanted to talk about. So maybe we should talk about the book next time. Let's talk about the book and my other works in progress next time. Because I read a good book on our trip, or listened to it, and I had a lot to say about it, and I've already kept you for an hour, and I don't want to keep you for longer. I don't want to abuse your schedule by assuming you have more time to give than you do. So I will be back next week with so much knitting to share with you. Thank you if you are still here, thank you for listening to that whole rambling thing about how much yarny goodness lives in Portland and how much fun we had. And I will say, even though the yarn was just an absolute treat, the basketball was as well. My son's team won 3 out of the 4 games. They played so well. I was so proud of them. It was such a joy to watch them play against teams from all over the country and work so hard and just put it all out there. It was an absolutely perfect trip. No delays, no lost bags. It was perfect. It was a short trip that felt long and luxurious, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. So anyway, I hope you had a good long weekend if you had one last weekend. I hope this weekend is filled with knitting and sunshine and joy and reading and all the good things in life that weekends are for. And I cannot wait to visit with you again next week. I will see you then. Bye.